Hey, greetings. Welcome back to the Car Doctor channel. I'm Tim. I'm here at my repair shop in Anchorage, Alaska, Donor Automotive, and got a quick video for you regarding Toyota Rav4 vehicles and the common problems we see associated with those vehicles. This vehicle is actually a 2005 Toyota Rav4 with a 4-cylinder engine and manual transmission. This is actually the second generation Toyota Rav vehicle, produced between 2000 and 2005. And this video is going to primarily deal with this particular vehicle, the second generation Rav, third generation 05 through 2012. That's when they introduced a V6 engine as well to the platform. And then I think in 2012 they worked with Tesla to create the Rav EV electric vehicle. And 2013 and up to present is the 4th gen Toyota Rav vehicles. But specifically we're going to deal with this second generation platform. Just a heads up, this vehicle actually came in for a buyer's inspection, and made me think I need to do one of these on a Rav. Especially if you're looking at purchasing one of these, it's good to know what to look out for, what you're going to be expecting as far as potential repairs down the road. This particular vehicle has 80,000 plus miles on it. We are in Alaska. There's a couple things that are different about our area and climate. It's cold, but we don't have a lot of rust here. We don't apply salt to the road, so I'm not really familiar with the type of problems you're going to be associated with rust on these vehicles as far as body panels or frame. I do know and I'm aware that they have rust problems with exhaust and frame and whatnot. That's just not my area of expertise, but I am familiar with the common things that we see, so we're going to dive right into it. All right, the most common issues we see with these vehicles are going to end up being a check engine light illuminated, and most commonly associated with an EVAP system problem. You might pull a code and get a code P0442. On this particular vehicle, you can be thinking maybe your charcoal canister has an issue, the canister close valve, gas cap, or even the fill neck where you fill it up with gas down inside there tends to rust out and get leaks. If 05 and later models, especially with the V6 engine, there's a hose that always gets knocked off the air filter housing. That'll set that code as well. Other check engine light codes, P0456, also associated with the EVAP system, some of the similar problems that I described. P0420, there's a common problem with the catalytic converters failing on this vehicle. If it's within the warranty range, not a big deal, but outside of warranty, the catalytic converter or exhaust manifold for the Upstream Cat manifold cat assembly, that can be kind of expensive to replace, and we always want to go with the OE dealer supplied part on that. The aftermarket cat assemblies can be problematic, can end up resetting codes, which isn't to say that there may be a problem with an O2 sensor causing that code. And there's also a new program for the ECM that deals with the cat efficiency codes and may be part of the problem if you're getting a code P0420. By the way, I'm going to attach down in the description some links to other videos that might be helpful regarding some of the problems that I'm identifying here. All right, next code that you might look for is a P0171. That's a lean condition indicated by the ECM and usually associated with a mass airflow sensor fault. Most times it's a bad mass airflow sensor. There's some checks you need to do to verify that. One thing you can try is cleaning the mass airflow sensor, making sure your air filter is clean as well. But you can also look for vacuum leaks, stuff like that that may trigger this code. All right, of course, this is the manual transmission equipped vehicle, as I've said, and the clutches are pretty stable on these, as the transaxles. But on the automatic transmission equipped Ravs of this vintage, they did have quite a few problems with the transmission control modules, causing shifting issues. They had a lot of defective modules. If you do end up having an issue like that, check for extended coverage for faulty modules. Sometimes the dealer takes care of that stuff. So this particular vehicle had 3 stored codes in the ECM. One was the P0300, a P0302, and a P0304, indicating misfires in cylinders 2 and 4. Okay, in this particular instance, it's more than likely ignition related, probably a couple bad coils. It's due for a tune-up, but that's going to require a little additional testing to confirm that. But one thing that is a common failure on these is cylinder head gasket problems. If you actually have a code P0302 and P0303, it very well may be a failure of the cylinder head gasket that's allowing compression to escape past the 2 cylinders and creating a misfire condition. Very common problem with these cars, especially the higher mileage cars, so that's something you want to look out for. There's also common problems with the valve train in these cars, problems with the valve guides dropping out, and problems with valves failing. There's also oil consumption issues on these motors caused by valve train problems. If you're looking at a used vehicle, you might just go to the tailpipe and put your finger in there. If it's really oily, then you might want to be careful with that one. You might want to do a leak down test and some other tests to confirm that there isn't actually an oil consumption problem where the engine's burning oil and there may be something due to engine wear or a failure in the cylinder head itself causing an oil consumption problem. If you are going to purchase one of these vehicles, I highly recommend that you contact the dealer with your VIN code and make sure that all the recall campaigns have been completed on the car. There's lots of recalls with the airbag inflator assemblies, as with just about any manufacturer nowadays, but also recalls with the throttle controls and addressing problems such as uncontrolled acceleration and whatnot. Be sure, for safety's sake, to go ahead and check and make sure any recalls have been completed on your car. The battery is located under this compartment here on this vehicle. We tested it and found that it was bad, but it's the original battery and it's over 13 years old. So nothing unexpected, but if you are dealing with the 13-year-old vehicle, these are things that should probably check and budget for if it's going to need to be addressed. Okay, we're going to raise it up and look at a few things, and while we're at it, the brakes. Decent braking system. However, these front rotors are prone to warping, especially if you drive like on steep areas coming down out of the mountains and whatnot, or you load the vehicle. Don't be surprised to need some front rotors once in a while. It happens. On these rear rotors here, you'll notice they've installed some slotted and drilled rotors. That's gonna improve the braking performance and prevent warped rotors. Generally speaking, I definitely put these on the front, but it's good to see that here. And these brakes are in good condition. They've obviously been serviced properly. These motor and transmission mounts are definitely problematic, especially with vehicles that got a few miles on them. They may create a clunking condition and whatnot, but usually not a super expensive repair. Here's the Downstream Cat on this exhaust. This is another source of issues, especially causing that code P0420. But you know, you can pound on it. If you hear some rattling in there, it's probably on the way out. You know, speaking of this exhaust system, they're definitely prone to rust, especially in areas where they use you know, salt on the roads and whatnot. But this one's in pretty good shape. There's no leakage here at all. It's good and tight. So we'll keep an eye on that. You know, as you go along, we're checking these axle shaft CV boots, the U-joints here on the drive shaft. And you know, really, these seem to hold up pretty well. Steering and suspension components as well, you know, good, well into 100,000 plus miles, depending on the type of roads you drive on. These shocks over here, the bushings are just a bit worn on these, but they're not to the point where they're creating a clunking noise or anything like that. We'll just make them aware of the wear there. They're actually not physically leaking any fluid out of the shock absorber itself, so They still got some life left in them. You know, these steering rack and pinions also seem to hold up pretty well. Not compared to like the Toyota Sienna vans, which have notorious for leaking out of the rack and pinion in seals and whatnot. But generally speaking, this vintage of Rav, haven't seen a lot of that. Here's one thing that I find it never fails. The rear window defroster grids on these. I don't know what happens. They put dogs or pets or kids back there or whatever, but these grid lines get scratched. Here's what I do when I'm checking these cars out. I turn the rear defrost on, and then I just breathe on the window. And then you look at that. See how all the other lines are thawing out the fog on the window, but this one doesn't. That's a bad defroster grid line. There's a repair for that. You can find the area that has an open in it, wherever that might be. And then you can get this paint that is conductive to fix that up. Well, the starters are very easy to get to on this car, and that's a good thing because they go bad all the time. So listen to the starter real good if you're checking one of these out, or if you own one and you're having problems starting your vehicle, it won't crank. It's highly possible you may have a bad starter. Definitely check your battery first, but suspect starter. And they're pretty easy to change out. The radiators themselves are a little bit problematic. They're not too difficult to change out. The side tanks tend to leak where the core connects to the plastic tank on the side. But we recommend an OE radiator, but they're pretty expensive. A lot of people opt for an aftermarket radiator as opposed to spending $400 on a OE part. Well, anyway, I hope this was helpful. You know, if you're just a little more informed as you're going out looking to purchase one of these, or if you own one and you're having one of these problems, hopefully this gets you pointed in the right direction. Like I said before, I'll put some links to videos down in the description below if it's relevant in this case. And I do appreciate you watching the Car Doctor channel. We'll catch you next time. Take care.